What inspired me is about 4.5 years ago, I became involved in the men's dating niche and quickly realized just how passionate I was about it. So I started working for a dating coach. She encouraged me to get out there and start my own, and that's what I've been doing for the past few months. The biggest misconception that men have when it comes to dating is they think that women absolutely do not want to be approached, and it's actually quite the opposite. All of that goes back to confidence, in my opinion. That's what we start working on first, is building that strong foundation of confidence so that they not only realize that they don't have to change anything about themselves to have success with dating. When you know and you learn the skills to market yourself effectively in person and online with women.
Welcome to the Afluencer podcast. We've got a special guest for our influencers who have male followers. So this is the type of service that can help out, I think, many of our men friends that we have. We brought on Sara Fudge. She's the owner and founder of Dating with Courage. So it's a service that really helps men with their dating process, whether they're getting back into the dating scene, not having success with it, not naming names, and we all have friends like this. So we want to bring in Sara to help them out. And then also for our influencers, Sara has a very generous opportunity for you as well, where you can share Sara's service, share the Dating with Courage service, and earn some compensation as well. So Sara, welcome. And can you take us through the inspiration on what inspired you to start Dating with Courage?
Yes. First of all, Brett, thank you so much for having me on today. What inspired me is about 4.5 years ago, I became involved in the men's dating niche and quickly realized just how passionate I was about it. So I started working for a coach, a dating coach, and her life circumstances changed and she got out of the business, but knew how much I loved my role within the company. So she encouraged me to get out there and start my own. And that's what I've been doing for the past few months.
Yeah, very cool. So how's that process been in terms of just kind of starting your own thing? I assume exciting, scary, all that good stuff at the same time?
All of the above. Within the role I had previously, I ran a lot of the back end business side of things for her, as well as interacted with the client. So it hasn't been too much of a shift as far as that dynamic goes. But of course, when you're an entrepreneur and you're saying, okay, I'm going for it, it's always a bit of a scary leap of faith, if you will.
It's the leap, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. You're into the abyss and then there's nobody else there, which is what I always found. And when you're working with the real job, the typical job, you always have someone you go to, right? Hey, this isn't
right.
What do you think? And then there's nobody, you're kind of it, right? So it's exciting, but yeah, it's all the above, as you said. So very cool. Yeah. Kudos to you for making the leap and for helping out our male friends here. What do you find are some of the, shall we say, misconceptions or sticking points, or where are some of our male friends kind of getting hung up or stuck when it comes to dating?
Okay. So I would say the biggest misconception that men have when it comes to dating is they think that women absolutely do not want to be approached. And it's actually quite the opposite. The vast majority, contrary to what media or, other dating tips would advise you about, women do want to be approached, but it's all about how you approach them and having the skills to not only approach, but know what to say, pick up on the social cues and attraction signals that she's actually interested in you. And then navigating that conversation into the point where it would be appropriate to ask her for her number or ask her on a date. So all of that goes back to confidence, in my opinion. That's a big sticking point with a lot of my clients. And that's what we start working on first, is building that strong foundation of confidence so that they not only realize that they don't have to change anything about themselves to have success with dating. Having quirks or unique interests, all of that is endearing, and there's no need to try to pretend that you're interested in something or use cheesy pickup lines to try to pick up women. None of that is needed when you know and you learn the skills to market yourself effectively in person and online with women. So getting to that point where you're confident, you know exactly when would be the right time to approach, how you would start that conversation and keep it going, gauging her interests, and then taking things to the next level, like I said, to get her number and go on a date. And know that even with all of those steps in place, rejection is a normal part of the process for anybody. So having the tools in their toolkit to know how to navigate that effectively so that it doesn't completely derail them from the process.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have the friends from back in the day who would approach everyone. And even though they had let's say a low percentage, their overall, so we say, quote unquote, success rate of, making contacts and such was high because it was a high sort of effort, right? They would kind of it would go anywhere to talk to women about that. That's interesting to say on the misconception in terms of women not wanting to be approached, because I guess I think back to my formative high school years, and this is going back to this is late 1990s, so it's a completely different era, but that's where men, boys, whatever, was kind of our role to, like, if you wanted a date for a dance, you had to go and ask the girl, your potential date. There was maybe one dance where the girls were in charge, but otherwise, it was kind of, it was always male forward there. And it sounds like in your experience, that's still kind of the case. When did that change in terms of men thinking that women didn't want to be approached, or because it sounds like that's kind of like a lonely existence. You're just kind of standing there and you want to talk to someone as a male, and you're not having any success just standing there, of course. When do you think that when did that flip, or how did guys get that idea, I guess, that women didn't want to be approached?
I think if I had to guess, it would be with the existence of online dating, texting. It really took that personal face-to-face element out of the common interactions we were having. Because like you said, back in the 90s, it was all face-to-face. And if you were going to make your move, you didn't have a Facebook profile or a dating app or a phone that you could just pick up and text. You were making that phone call, most likely talking to her parents ahead of time, and then having those conversations. So I think, although I am a huge proponent of online dating, I think it has been a really big game changer when it comes to the dating space. It has, unfortunately, one downside has taken that personal element of that face-to-face interaction. So I think men just became less comfortable, and then they just, didn't realize how important those skills truly were.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I missed that era, so that makes sense why, or personally not being in it. So I guess that makes sense from that perspective. Yeah, you made me laugh because I remember calling the house phone, and you're really hoping that she picks up. You hope it's
right.
And mom, you can get through, and sometimes you can ham it up with mom. But when dad picked up, you're like, but you can't hang up because they know it's you. So you have to get through it. So it was a completely different era. I mean, you had to go through the ultimate gatekeepers to get there. So yeah, different now, right? You have the direct connection and the dating apps. So do you leverage social media then? I assume today, or social media or dating apps, or let's just say any of that stuff in your work in terms of helping guys get more, I guess, conversations going on that front?
Yes, I do. I have taken a bit of a hiatus because I have had so much of my time devoted to developing my programs and dealing with my clients. But I do, starting November, plan on posting more on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I do one live webinar a month on various topics. So it's completely free, and the attendees can come and learn and ask questions. So that's a really great way that I've found to interact and engage with my audience. But yes, social media has been a really great tool to get the information out there and get this conversation started, although it can sometimes not be for the faintest of heart.
Right. And do you coach the in-person stuff? So, I mean, going way back, I mean, my parents, they met at a bar. And that was that era. And then I, you know, as I was coming of age, I mean, people still, they would go out to bars and they would meet and they would approach, right, in person. And that's kind of, as you mentioned, that's gone away with the dating apps. What methods do you coach, I guess, in terms of, are you encouraging your clients to get on mostly dating apps, or do you have them go out there, maybe not to bars like we did, you know, decades ago, but go in person in certain situations, grocery store, the co-op, those types of places? How do you approach that from a coaching standpoint?
So I like to take an all-inclusive approach because online dating can work extremely well for certain people, but there are some caveats to that. Like if you live in a super rural location, or it's just a super saturated market, that can also be a disadvantage. The key though is, even if you're having great success with online dating, you still have to have the tools and skills to interact face to face. So we cover online dating, we cover meeting women in person in their areas. I do not like bars and clubs for ways to meet women, just because it's loud, it's not conducive for conversation, and you know, it's just not a really great spot to find women, in my opinion. So we do go through a very in-depth process depending on where they live, and we find areas that would be the most productive for them to spend their time to find single women.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. I know there's a push here from some single groups to start doing meetups. I mentioned the local co-op because that's where kind of the some like-minded people, they're shopping, but then it's kind of strange if you're buying quinoa just to talk to someone, I would imagine, right, on the pickup lines. So but if it's more of an organized singles event, then it's more natural, right, to where you can kind of meet up and meet the like-minded people. What do you coach on the approach? And I guess if we think in person, then, I mean, I know or I guess we could talk apps as well, but I would assume it's more of a conversational approach, not the cheesy pickup line, not too forward, but you're just trying to get a conversation going. Are there things along those lines? And do you try to tailor it maybe to the client where it's more natural for them versus the old, hey, you come here often? I assume you don't want something that's canned. You want it to be real natural and kind of organic, something that they would say.
Exactly.
Naturally. Okay.
So definitely no cheesy pickup lines at all. We really try to focus on teaching them how to decipher just situationally in their environment what would be an appropriate open line to use. But my go-to line is just a simple, hi, I noticed you from across the room and I wanted to come say hi, I'm so-and-so. And that works in any situation. So it's all about that. And then, like you said, just their personality, interests, and where they happen to be to kind of tie it all together.
Flows from there. And then I assume they're getting cues and you're teaching them cues where they come over, say hi. If there's interest on the other side, I'm sure a conversation starts. And then if there's not, I'm sure there's cues you're saying like, hey, at some point, if there's cues that there's not much interest, it was nice to meet you, and you move on. Is that the type of thing you're working through?
Yes, teaching them how to, obviously, if the conversation's going great, that's a win. But if it's obviously getting derailed and going off track, how to tactfully exit the conversation without, showing your emotions at the time or making spur of the moment decisions that might derail your further progress. How to just, handle that rejection with grace and act like a gentleman.
Yeah, because it's going to happen, right? It's kind of a numbers game, and it's going to happen, and you just want your client to exit, keep the head up high, keep everything on the up and up, right, with the new connection that they've made. Cool. Well, let's talk influencers a little more, Sarah. So it kind of struck me when I was reviewing your collab and service. I'm like, geez, this is almost applicable to, anyone with male followers. I know I saw you've got some targets in terms of male clothing and things like that, which makes sense. But yeah, it kind of struck me as, especially from a demographic standpoint, like, hey, if I'm an influencer and I have a large percentage of male followers, they could use your service, and whether it's, from guys in their 20s who really haven't been out there as much and could use the coaching, to I know there's guys in their 40s, 50s. I met with a friend last week who's over 60, and I think he understands kind of pretty well, but he was telling me, he's like, man, these guys are a mess when they come off of, they're single again, they're divorced, or they're, as you mentioned on your site, maybe they're widowed, and they just haven't dated for like 20 or 30 years. I'm talking about the late 90s with you, right? So, guys get out of the game for a long time if you're in a relationship. So how do you look from an influencer standpoint at that in terms of introducing dating with courage to people?
So I will say, you can have success in dating at any age. My oldest client that I'm currently working with right now still is 80 years old, and he is killing it out in the dating game. He's on 2 online dating apps. The great thing about online dating apps, you can kind of cater to certain demographics. So he's on eHarmony, which tends to have an older client base, and then Our Time. So he is out there on the dating apps. He's meeting women in person. He is having success like no other. So if he can do it, you can too.
That is awesome.
But yes, as far as an audience, my clients range from 20-ish to 20 or 80, obviously. And then obviously single would be a good requirement for that. So not trying to date anybody not trying to work with anybody that is married and looking to date on the side. And we have some ethical standards in place. But yes, any guy that is looking to improve their dating life in a really genuine and authentic way, I think would be a great fit.
That's great. And it looked like a nice commission opportunity as well with your collab.
Yes. So 10% of any sales, my flagship 12-week coaching program, it would be around $500 per sale, and there's no cap on that. And that's exactly what I offer to my sales team. So yeah, it's the potential to really reach a lot of your audience that may not even know that something like dating coaching exists, and kind of taking the stigma off of it. Because a lot of my clients that come to me admit that, hey, I followed you for a while, but I was embarrassed or timid to reach out because I felt like that in and of itself was a failure. But I always tell them, hey, nobody is born knowing how to do everything. If you are looking to improve your fitness or your nutrition, you'd go see a personal trainer or a nutritionist. Obviously, if you're sick, you're going to go see a doctor. This is really no different. And the only embarrassing thing I personally feel about anything in this situation is knowing that you're lacking the skills and that you want to get to where you want to be in your life with finding a partner and maybe having a family one day, and making the decision to not do anything about it. So
yeah, that's a great point. You look at guys have no problem paying for a golf coach, right? Someone to work on their swing so that they can drive the ball farther. So they'll have golf lessons all day at a grown-up age, right? But there's certain things that guys won't do at a grown-up age, which is kind of funny, because why would you not improve your weaknesses? And if this is something that you want to work on, why not get a coach like yourself? So for our people who are kind of kicking around the periphery, Sara, and watching and saying, geez, I'm interested, I don't know if I'm ready for coaching yet, but I do want all that cool info that you're sharing on your socials as you ramp that up, how can people follow and find Dating with Courage out there?
So I would go to my website. It's just datingwithcourage.com. I've got all my social accounts linked on there, and you can have the contact form. And then my email is Sara, SARAOH, @datingwithcourage.com.
That's great. And we'll get the link to your collab below the show here, so our influencers can apply to that. And then again, datingwithcourage.com for all of our listeners, male listeners who wanted to follow Sara's advice, all of our single friends out there. So thanks so much, Sara, our golf coach, but more important, our dating coach for men who are single and looking for help on that front. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Brett. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.